Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Gentech PC product showcase. In today's full-length featured review, we'll be going over the brand new release of the MSI GE66 Raider. In a nutshell, for those not familiar with this particular model, the GE66 Raider from MSI is going to be the no-holds-barred high-end gaming laptop for those that are looking for desktop-like performance in a mobile platform. As we move through the complete review, we'll start things off with a simple unboxing so you can see what to get if you order one of these for yourself and how it's going to be packaged. So as with most products these days, it will come double boxed with a plain cardboard box on the outside that gives it extra protection during shipment and also keeps it a little bit more low profile. The interior box is just mostly plain black with MSI on it, and then it opens up fairly easily to reveal what's inside. Our laptop in the main quarters on the right, protected by the foam, and then on the left-hand side we have a separate box that's going to have some of our accessories. So we'll have our power cable, which will be different depending on your region, and the actual power supply as well. As for what kind of power supply is required to run a laptop like this, as you can see with the close-up, the power adapter is 230 watts. So it's pretty nice to see, despite the high-end hardware on this laptop, that it doesn't require anything cumbersome like the dual power supplies we see on some other high-end laptops. Now it's time to go ahead and take our laptop out, and as you can see, it's well protected with foam padding on all the different sides, and then plastic underneath of that, so it's protected from water, scratches, shock, crush, all that kind of shipping damage. And a very first glance at the laptop. And with our laptop and the power adapter removed, there's not much left except for the information pamphlet. So it's a pretty basic box without any extras. Moving along into our metrics, size and weight. So our laptop is 5 pounds and 4 ounces on its own. If you add in a power adapter, you're going to be traveling with about 7 pounds and 4 ounces of weight. As for the size, we do have some coins for scale, just to give you a good visual. And with an actual ruler, we can measure to see that the very highest point of the rear of the laptop is less than 1.5 inches, and the front a little bit closer to 1 inch. Of course, this is a traditional wedged shape, which gives it better clearance for air cooling and also more ergonomic when you're typing. Now with our laptop powered up for the first time, we can get a first glance at some of the things that make the GE66 Raider a sight to behold. As you can see, the entire front part of the bezel there, the front of the laptop, is RGB and it has motion built into it. The screen, super bright, super clear with a very thin bezel, which makes it look very nice, and a 300 Hz refresh rate. So that is a pretty ridiculous refresh rate on a laptop monitor. The keys, as usual, are a low-profile chiclet style with RGB backlighting. Each key individually backlit, and that's a SteelSeries keyboard. One oversized touchpad with integrated left and right clicks. Even though this is a high-end gaming laptop, you should be able to get a pretty decent battery life out of it because it has a 99.9 watt-hour battery, which is the largest battery you can put in a laptop. At the top, in the thin bezel, we do have the integrated HD webcam and microphone, so you can do your video conferencing and chat. Outside of looking really nice, the thin bezels also give you an opportunity to take a 15.6-inch laptop and make the overall size a little bit smaller. So this fits more like an older 14-inch laptop. So before we dive into the system, the last thing to do is to take a look at our interfaces and connectivity along the perimeter of our laptop. On the right-hand side, we have two USB 3 Type A ports and an SD card reader. So that's pretty nice. You'll see the big vents for the cooling. The back of the laptop actually has connectivity in this case. Starting from left to right, we have a mini display port, a USB Type-C connector, our RJ45 for local network connectivity, HDMI, and a port for our main power adapter. And finally, on the left side, we have our Kensington lock port, our USB Type A again, another USB Type-C, and a single 3.5mm audio connection for microphones, headphones, or a headset. So overall, it's really nice to see we have tons of connectivity as far as video output, also tons of USB connectivity, and pretty much anywhere you need to plug in something you have a side available, so it makes it easy to configure to fit your desk space. Just something to note is the power adapter is quite different on this laptop. It looks almost like USB instead of traditional round DC power adapters. Now it's time for us to move into the system, and we'll start here in the device manager so we can look at our hardware that's responsible for making this such a high-end computer. So we're starting off with an Nvidia RTX 2080 Supermax Q Edition for our video. On the CPU side, we have the brand new Core i9 10980HK for Intel's CPU for our processing. We have 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and of course we have killer for both the wired and wireless networking. As for the monitor, if you want to Google that ID online, you might find more information on the exact panel. The amazing thing about it is not the resolution or colors, but the 300 Hz refresh rate means it's super fast. The next thing that we'll take a quick look at is going to be the MSI Dragon Center. And this is the main software that's provided with the laptop so that you can both have insight to your system and control over it. So you can change overclocking directly from software here. You can see we can change our RAM and offsets for the CPU. We have different power modes. We have different fan modes. We have a whole bunch of different things that we can both change and monitor. Anything from overriding the Windows key so you don't accidentally knock yourself out of a game while you're full screen gaming, to doing a specific selection on which graphics card you're using, which has been predominantly a problem in the past where a game would detect your integrated graphics and use that instead of your dedicated graphics. We have Crosshair Overlays that you can use to kind of hack a game that doesn't have any actual sites. We can see our current utilization of processors. There's just a lot of things you can do from here, so take your time and poke through it, and you might find some really neat stuff. Now, the next software control feature that you're surely going to spend some time playing around with is going to be your Rgb lighting. So you have a lot of different presets here that you can see we're running right now because they're already programmed in there, and they're pretty neat. You have full RGB control of each individual key, and of course that front panel as well is a new feature to this model. So you have plenty of lighting to really show off the laptop and make it personalized for whatever color scheme you like. So the next segment of our review is going to be our benchmarking. So the first thing we want to do is get our baseline temperatures here. So we have our CPU and GPU information baselines, and we're going to take a look at our temperatures before and after so we can see how high these temperatures are going to get during our benchmarks. So it's important that we not just get baseline readings for the internal hardware, but also we want to get external readings as well. So we have an infrared thermometer camera here, and this is going to kind of show where the heat is in the system. What's really nice to see is that how cool the areas are where your hands are touching. So this is going to be a comfortable to use laptop. You won't get hot, sweaty hands. We'll see if that changes once we really crank up the system by running benchmarks. On the back where the exhaust is located, you do see those are very hot areas, even leaving streaks across the table. And that's a really good sign because that means it's getting all that heat out of the system. And our last baseline metric is going to be the sound levels. So we do have a decibel meter here, and we're trying to see how loud the exhaust noise is from our laptop. For benchmarks, we'll start things off with 3D Mark Firestrike. So this will be a standard benchmark we always run. And what we're going to look at here is how much the fans spool up, how loud they get, how high the temperatures get, and of course, what kind of score we get with the actual benchmark itself. So as the benchmark runs, we'll go through these same metrics again and kind of see how things are changing. One thing to keep in mind is that all systems with the same hardware are pretty much going to give you the same performance. What really changes between each manufacturer and laptop is how good they are at keeping quiet and how good they are at keeping cool. And that's where these benchmarks really come in handy. What you might not want to see, depending on your usage scenario, is a system that's just favoring one way too much. If it's way too quiet because they want to have a quiet laptop, but things start getting too hot, that's not great. And then if you also have one that is really cool, but so loud that you can never take it on public, that wouldn't be good either. So we're looking for a good balance. So let's talk about our performance scores. 18,710 is what we checked in with 3D Mark Firestrike. So a great score, and of course what we would expect with the hardware that we have. Checking in on our temperatures, that's going to be the first real challenge on this laptop. So a maximum temperature in the 90 degrees Celsius range on a few of the cores actually isn't too bad. We see these temperatures a lot with the higher end CPUs, and often hotter than that. GPU temperature 63 degrees Celsius max, also super nice and cool. So it did actually really well here with the hardware. And we have a few more benchmarks that we run across all the reviews, so that way if you're comparing multiple models, you can see the same benchmarks compared against each other. So Cinebench R15. So the OpenGL portion has finished, and it came in at 132.44 frames per second, and the CPU portion is currently running right now. And on that portion, we got 1,855 as the score. So again, check these against other laptops you might be interested in and just see if there's any differences. And now for the last system benchmark, Blender. Now Blender can be very, very taxing on the system, so this will take a while to run, and it gives us a good metric on our performance. So it took 1 minute and 5 seconds to run the BMW 27 render. That's a fairly small render compared to some of the other things you can run on Blender that can take hours. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the final portion of our review is going to be the disassembly of our system, so we can see the internal components. So taking it apart is not too difficult, but also not super simple. We do have a lot of different screws to remove, and once you get all of those out, you can remove the entire bottom panel. The disassembly is more of just to showcase how the system looks inside more than it is an instructional video, because there's not too much reason to go inside of the laptop when it's configured so highly out of the box. In here we can see the incredibly large battery, the 99.9 watt-hour battery that takes up almost a third of the real estate. In that immediate vicinity, we do have one of the speakers over here on the left-hand side, and you have a matching speaker on the right-hand side. And then just above it, this is where we're going to have our system storage. So these are M2 form factor SSDs. Now this is one of the few things you actually could upgrade, because one of those is occupied by a 1 terabyte SSD, but the other is empty, so you could add a second SSD to the system. Just a short note that, of course, when you check out at our store, you have the opportunity to upgrade and change components. So if you wanted an upgrade, you could have it part of your order. We'll take care of all of this and keep it covered under your warranty. Other components, we have one of our wireless modules, and we have the system RAM. Now both of the system RAM slots are already occupied, and you have 32 gigabytes of RAM in total. So there's really no reason to upgrade the RAM at all in this particular system. And for the next step of disassembly, we took out the SSD, the system RAM, and we unbolted the entire cooling assembly. So this has got the fans and the heat pipes, everything interconnected as a single piece. Our battery was removed, the wireless module removed, and this is pretty much as far as we would take apart the system, strictly just to show you the GPU and the CPU, what they look like underneath of the cooling. It does look like the factory paste job was done fairly well on this laptop, so that's one of the things sometimes you might redo, especially after the system has aged. But in this case, right out of the factory, everything looked really good. And that, ladies and gentlemen, pretty much wraps up our entire review. We hope you did enjoy the full-length featured review of the MSI GE66 Raider. It's a pretty amazing piece of kit, and of course if this video has got you interested and you'd like to learn more, then go down to the video description and check out the product page link. There you can find the current pricing and availability and the full system specs. Now if the video didn't answer any of the questions you might have, feel free to post them down in the comments section where we can answer those questions for you and everybody else. And don't forget, we have our phone and email available for you so you can contact us for one-on-one support. Once again, we just want to remind you, this was Gentech PC, and we'll see you next time.